I spent 5 years training for the Olympics. I was second in the Olympic trials, ranked about 10th in the world in the sport of rowing. So anything within competition, whether that competition is on the rowing field, or I've also started 3 different successful companies. ODINtechnologies is the 3rd company I started. And all of those things come into play, the ideals of competition. This is something that I've thought of and known, but didn't have the framework to articulate it. And it's something that applies directly to everything you guys do on a day-to-day basis. Because whatever you're trying to do within your company, there's some form of competition, some form of success or failure. So we're going to go through some of the steps. The first thing we're going to do is tell you that creativity wins. Last year I was lucky enough to testify in front of the Senate Committee on education. And everybody there except me on the panel was lamenting that we don't have enough math and science majors, right? That we're losing to China and India and Russia and everything else. And I made the argument that creativity is much more important than math and science training. And here's why. Most people look at a problem, they apply a known solution, and they complete that problem. This is a pretty standard way of doing things, and if any of you look around to how you've addressed things in the past, I guarantee everyone's got examples of saying, okay, I've got a problem, what's the best way to solve it? And when you say what's the best way to solve it, most people say, excuse me, how have other people successfully solved that? This is very much low risk, low reward. So you'll solve the problem, but if you're using a known solution, you're not going to do anything dramatically different than anyone else out there. And this is akin to the barcode. Barcode's been around for 35 years. Pretty low risk, and it's also low reward. It's kind of the price for doing business these days in logistics or supply chain or asset management. Everyone just does barcode. Can't find things or want to track things, put a barcode. You can even apply known solutions in RFID. RFID would be taking a handheld and keeping your business process the same where you'd normally use a barcode, but now you just don't have to look at it directly. Very low risk, very low reward. The big benefit in RFID comes when you change your business process. RFID is not about the technology, and that's why the introductory to this session and my first 45 minutes here has very little to do with RFID. RFID is all about changing the business technology, changing the business process, and using technology to enable that. So now I'm going to ask for a quiz, and this is going to get some hoorahs going. Everyone stand up, please. It's early morning. See, you're supposed to do this type of stuff after lunch so no one falls asleep, but we're going to do it this morning, make sure everyone's wide awake. Now, if you know what this next item is, stay standing. Very good. Everyone did well in basic geometry, or so they think. If you know what this item is, stay standing. Okay, very good. And lastly, if you now everyone be careful when you answer this, because I'm going to pick on folks. If you know what this item is, stay standing. Okay, David, what do you think that last item is? Okay, a lot of different things. For those of you who can describe all 3 of those shapes in one word, stay standing. Tom, I thought you were going to be with me on this one. Okay, you sir, standing right in the middle. Okay, that's not the answer I'm looking for, but sit down, good effort. We'll go way to the back. Yes, sir.
Pyramid.
Hurrah! Everyone, 1, 2, 3. Hurrah! That's a pyramid. Now, it's a very different way of looking at a pyramid, but all 3 of those shapes are exactly right. What's your name, sir?
Joe Wall.
Joe?
Joe.
Joe is going to win a copy, and hopefully Christina or Terry has it. Joe's going to win a copy of the Boyd biography. It's a great book. Have you read it?
No.
Okay, you'll love it, and you'll appreciate his way of thinking. And Kylie or Christina will get that to you in just a second. Boyd oftentimes would use this type of test with folks to get them to realize that applying a known solution or a known answer wasn't necessarily the right way of doing things. And this just understood it. So we've got a room of about 80 people here, and we had maybe 4 or 5 people standing up at the end. So that's a pyramid. You're looking at the side, you're looking at the bottom, then you're looking at the top of that pyramid. It's a very different way of thinking. So this way of thinking is also the type of creativity you need to, Boyd refers to this method of thinking as creation destruction. And he uses the first method of destruction, meaning you have to analyze something. And typical science analyzes things by pulling it apart. And then you have to use synthesis to put it back together in a different manner, to get something very different. So it really works out to be exploration, then discovery, and then innovation. That's really the key to tremendous value and tremendous success. And the more successful you are, the more far away from other normal known solutions that you're going to be. But on the same token, it's also the same thing that people will say, okay, why didn't I think of that? Because it makes great sense. And some great examples of this are when we've had problems, and I'll use a terrorist problem, 9/11. Who was there saying, okay, we'll apply a known solution, and that known solution is making sure people have passports, or you know, we've got soldiers stationed, or what have you. Nobody said, okay, we're going to lock cockpit doors, or we're going to have F-16s flying over New York City all the time, because people weren't doing the type of creative thinking that unfortunately the terrorists were doing. Now, on a much nicer and much more creative note, you can think of Google. Who would have thought, just going back less than 10 years, that people would be able to search an internet using something other than how it's indexed or how many people hit it? Google has come up with an incredible way to search and index things and find information on the internet. They're cataloging every book in the Library of Congress now. So Google was so far off of applying known solutions, as were the terrorists. And you can think of tons of examples for this. iPods are another great example. MP3 players have been around for years. I mean, I've had them, I think I got my first one probably 1990 or something like that. But they were cumbersome, and my mom could never make one work. And the iPod comes along with this great user interface, really intuitive whole system. So again, it's taking something, exploring it, discovering it, and then innovating. And I know you're all just sort of chomping and wondering what these three keys to success. First, I want to make sure that everyone's thinking in the proper Boyd framework. So when Boyd started to figure out what was going on in terms of air-to-air combat and his success as a fighter pilot, he was just coming out of Korea. In Korea, we had an F-86 Sabre, arguably one of the more ugly fighter planes that we've developed in our history. And you can say, we've got some folks here, Tom and Matt down from Warner Robinson, and I think we've got some guys from Scott Air Force Base. We've got guys who see fighter planes all the time. The F-86 Sabre was not a pretty plane. It was slow, and it couldn't turn tightly. Okay? The MiG-15 that we were fighting against, the Russian-made MiG-15, had a much tighter turning radius, much higher ceiling, and greater ability, much faster, greater ability to climb. Yet our kill ratio, the U.S. against Korea, was 10-1. So for every one of our planes, U.S. planes they shot down, we shot down 10 Korean planes. Now, the training wasn't that much different. The technology certainly was theoretically better in the MiGs than it was in the F-86. So Boyd's scratching his head saying, gosh, how can this be possible with a less superior plane? Boyd missed out on Korea, and this is when he went back to Georgia Tech to get his degree as a 38-year-old. He was a little out of place there. And then got restationed, and in fact, I believe it was down to Warner Robins, and started stealing computer time. So he stole computer time to try and figure out equations, and he was using an unknown solution to discover the differences. He stole computer time to figure out this energy maneuverability theory he came up with. Because right about the time that he actually got in to see a little bit of combat was Vietnam. In 1965, the F-4 Phantom, which you see there, and the MiG-21 were nearly even. The F-4 Phantom was the most sophisticated plane that we ever developed.